Tonight, we're diving into the dark, terrifying, and utterly unglamorous world of the Middle Ages, a realm of shadowy figures who lurked in castle corridors and alleyway pits, changing history with a knife's edge and a whisper. Hollywood paints them as super cool, but the truth, being an assassin in the medieval era, was the absolute pinnacle of misfortune. No one woke up thinking, "Today, I'll start cutting lords' throats for 12 silver coins and the glory of hiding in a barrel for 3 days." It wasn't a career path. It was life's final stop, where everything had fallen apart so badly that a person ended up there. Most assassins weren't mysterious. Lone warriors trained in secret mountain temples. They were desperate peasants, disgraced soldiers, former thieves, who could aim decently, or people society ignored. No one noticed if they killed someone. If you were rich, you didn't become an assassin, you hired one. If you owned land, or even a goat, you were management level. But if you'd escaped, Gel had a reputation for problem solving, and could vanish in a tavern. Congratulations. Someone would slide a coin pouch under the table and whisper a name. That name was never ordinary: a corrupt baron, a gold-hoarding bishop, or someone guarded by a dozen bodyguards and ledgers. The pay sounded tempting, the job horrific, but by the time someone took this path, they had nothing left to lose. No family, no future, and dental insurance. Forget it. No job perks, pension, glory, vacation. No shop signs saying quiet extractions. Just staying silent, slipping away fast, and never telling anyone what you do, especially not loudly in a drunken haze. "Yeah, I'm a traveling carpet seller." Those stains just die. So, no one dreamed of being an assassin. The world chewed them up, hooded them, and tossed them out with a rusty knife. They weren't heroes or villains, just an uncomfortable footnote, likely dead before enjoying the coins. First myth busted. Medieval assassins didn't train in candlelit secret monasteries with wise gurus playing flutes for inspiration. No montage, no teachers. What they learned came from surviving the first few attempts. Most were amateurs, desperate folks with direction, sense, and quiet movement skills. Military experience helped, at least knowing how to hold a knife properly. Otherwise, stabbing is instinctive, but escaping with both kidneys relies on skill or luck. Usually luck. No manual, no guilt orientation, no safety briefing, no knowing body doubles or secret doors in a lord's bedroom. You figured it out hanging from window grills, wondering if you'd circled back to the servants' quarters. Poison. Trial and error, with emphasis on error. Sometimes it worked, sometimes the target just got mild dizziness and suspected the soup more. Sometimes you drank the wrong cup yourself. No medieval poison control hotline, just hope, guesswork with plants and a strong stomach. Sure, if lucky, a thief or mercenary might teach tricks. An older assassin could show silent walking on cobblestones. But mentoring wasn't standard, rare, and short-lived. Since assassins didn't retire, they just vanished. Weapon training? Forget it. No broadswords carried around. A stolen small knife. Maybe a garrote wire if feeling fancy. Anything hideable under a cloak without noise. You weren't a shadow martial arts master. You were a rough-handed guy who could walk quietly and had an unhealthy alley relationship. Success came from surviving, not training, quick messy kills, then disappearing before someone sketched your face for church doors. In short, brutal. Practical education with no graduation, just scars, bloodstains, and deep loneliness. Why become one? Money, cold, heavy, jingling, spendable cash. That's what drew you. But reality, paid in lies. The hirer wants no long-term relationship. Just one-time service, no paperwork. Ideally no witnesses including you. Half upfront, half after if generous. But after means verify, no mess, no fingers pointing, no survival to talk. You did. It snuck in shadows, risked life, slit a sleeping baron's throat. Not pretty, not poetic. Return, owe payment. Clyde fled, sorry. Or worse, they try killing you. A belly stabs cheaper than bonus. Even if paid, never enough for the risk. Blood, 3 days with flies, and regret in a haystack. Some contracts were traps, political games. Told to kill a dangerous person, a decoy with guards waiting. Congrats, you walked into a sting with your name on the gallows. Even real contracts. No suing. Honorable Judge, Lord Edmund breached our assassination deal. You'd be the exhibit in court. So learn. Take what you get. Demand up front. Trust no one. Not even that bearded guy swearing this job changes your life. It did, made it much shorter. Took the job, got cheated on, pay, high death chance. Now gear. Forget fantasy novels and games. No retractable wrist blades, smoke bombs, magic, daggers, or folding boot crossbows. Toolkit. What you stole, borrowed, or hid silently in torn clothes, if lucky. A good small knife knot, ornate, not dragon-toothed curved. Just sharp, hopefully rust-free, no previous owner's smell. Poison existed, but not glamorous wine glass. Pouring, mostly unreliable plants, minerals, frog guts. Sometimes instant, sometimes hours. Sometimes just 2 days vomiting before target recovers angrier. More soup - suspicious rope, sometimes for strangling, climbing, tying. But quick or fumbling which not goes under. Ruins the mood. Bows. Effective if you had one. New use. Didn't pose as flower seller at palace. Most kills close up, no elegant distance shooting. Just fast, silent. Hope not too much blood too. Slip in, no backup. Knife breaks or falls in well. Improvise. Roof tile, rusty nail, shoe buckle, shry it, force. Weapons hidden in clothing folds, boots, or bread hollows. Always close, not for security, but your only friend, boss, retirement plan. No upgrades, mid-mission tuning. Prey, no mid-betrayal. Weapon doesn't kill. Lonely you does with bad tools. Spoon and prayer for miracles. Assassins weren't hired for street drunks or sleeping candle sellers. Targets important, nobles, bishops, officers, sometimes royalty. Killing them nearly impossible. First obstacle, guards. Not 1 or 2 dozens. Armed, armored, well-fed. Patrolling day-night, door creaks. Asthmatic night panting on stairs or memorized. Second, walls. No open castle, balconies, gatehouses, murder holes, moats with biting things. Full risk, arrows, boiling oil. Job description. Peeking may get you fried. Third, servants, cooks, scribes, stable boys. One wrong glance whispered to guard captain. Assassins fought rumors too. Medieval gossip spread lightspeed if heads at stake. Finally, target paranoid, rightly. Surrounded by knife-happy relatives, heirs, fake lovers, food tasters, triple locks for sleep, decoys in bed, room swaps like deadly musical chairs, banquet news, don't decide. Yes, drunk but so are you. Still navigate royal guards, 3 dogs, hyper-alert jester, 50 witnesses. Reaching target could take weeks. Posing as servant, bribing. Made barrel hiding when moment came on chance. Perfect, silent, bloodless, vanish in night. Else your next warning, hanging on gate, sign, nice try. Medieval assassin, alone. No team, no crossbow sidekick, no alchemist lab, no coded scroll. Handler. Just you, rusty knife, zero trust. Guild. Rumors mostly tavern tailies from unemployment. Networking with killers, rarer than ghost sightings. Why so lonely? Fewer knowing you exist, longer you live. Every contact risk, every loose tongue potential. Noose. Klein didn't know a real name. If they did, you'd already be fleeing doc partners. Laughable. Friends ask questions. Lovers want scar, bloodstain, pillow-neath explanations. No permanence. One slip, marker recognition life, becomes sewer sprint. Even criminals kept distance. Thieves, smugglers, sociable. You made people disappear. They feared you or worse, saw walk in danger. No stooshering when you attract torch mobs. Sympathy. Forget. Couldn't confess post-bishop strangle insomnia. Job talk made people think, liar, or dangerous rightly both. Keep secrets, scars, weapons to yourself. Sit in dark corners, back to wall, eyes on door. No heavy drinking. No staying over one night. No real name unless paid first. Probably fake anyway. Medieval assassin. Master of vanishing from crowds. And lives never had. Suppose you took job. Planned route. Bribed gatekeeper. Chimney sweep disguise. Slipped in. Then froze. Target turned unexpectedly. Child present. Or worst hand. Shook like frightened squirrel. What then? You die. Medieval failure. No slap or bad review public. Painful, dramatic death. Rope, fire, wheel, or bone-breaking fun iron. Devise. Missed kill exposes operation. Target lives, tells attempt. Suddenly, not shadow wanted. Detailed description, crude sketch on every tavern wall, 30 miles. Guards you bypassed now eager. Sometimes bigger fear than target. Client. Failure. Liability. Torturable. Talkative. Your high-res issues second, contract yours. No redo. Sorry. Knife slipped. Try tomorrow. One shot. Miss best hope, quick death, before known. Failure, shameful too. Silent, humiliating. Not just failed, kill failed, invisibility. Perfection was survival. Less means, back target, final words. Rehearsal. Past successes, irrelevant. You're only as good as last kill, if not last run. Suppose succeeded. Plan worked. Knife right spot. No scream, no guards. Just slumped floor, important person, gone. Congrats. Now run for life. Medieval. Success. No rooftop wine watching city burn. Bloodied boots, alley sprint, dogs sniffing behind. No victory lap. No co-worker post-job drinks. No client debrief. Job end starts new evading everyone, now wanting you dead differently. Guards coming, gates closing, horse other side town. Likely. Bloodied pre-plan, escape. Fortress gates shut, checkpoints. 20 angry swordsmen with rough sketch, likely armed, highly knife prone. Client, a sue pay planned. They vanish too. Success makes you most dangerous. You know too much. Proved reach where others can't. Success, one-hand coins, back huge target, leave, win gets. Weak hay roof, sleep, fairy bribes, dark beard shave, brother Lucian joining East monks. Success not survival. New city, new name restart, more people hunting. Yes, killed. Now run desperately. If all hardship not enough surrounding people's extraordinary paranoid imagination. Medieval assassin not just feared cursed. Too common. Peasant, not hooded, killer impure thing, whispering ghosts, full moon frog gut, knife coating. Else how bypass guards, vanish dark. Logic scares, superstition everywhere. Some said shapeshifters, some invisible sands holy water bath. Popular tale jungle spirit deal, death breathes through walls. Imagine walking village, woman whispers. No eye contact, cursed child. Think, fear helped. People avoided. Reality, worse. Superstitious mobs, no questions. Stone throw, firelight. Yell lightning called before burn. Reputation, overreacted. Sudden death illness, accident, chicken bone chokes, shadow man work, that guy. Near suspicious death dash hunted. Always move. Linger one place sudden. Priest bells, 5 angry peasants, pitchforks, waiting lifetime for moment. Odd finds, dried herbs, fawn coins, axe and sorcerer, yell torches up. World-believing human-shaped demons, too quiet, clever, fast, dangerous. Medieval logic, danger kill quick, preferably fire. Poison, assassin's elegant weapon. Silent kill, no blood, no screams, no metal bone scrape, just sip. Stagger, sigh. End, theory. Medieval reality. Herbal tea, bad mood, bar fight odds. First, unreliable. No pure cyanide fast, destroy pills. Plants, mushrooms, minerals, sometimes frogs. Gather, grind, pray. Might just upset stomach, boost target guards. No scientific dosing. Eyeball, too little noble vomits, cancels dinner. Too much you die. First course. Kitchen chaos. No sneaking soup scatter nightshade. Cook, disguise or bribe entry. Or unseen mix worst. 3 tasters, 1 dog. Yes, dogs. Nobles treated food like military op. Steward to jester, tasted, blessed, sniffed. Plate journey, more security than royal wedding. Suppose succeeded. Poison in uncaught. Target 8. Then, utterly unpredictable. Some hours, some days. 1 minute laughing, next clutching belly, calling astrologer. Survives. Whose fault? Not cook, not tastierers. Quiet herb knower, shifty eyes. Poison ineffective. Risky, slowed variables, all against. This was medieval assassins. Life endless, dark, lonely struggle. Success opening next danger door. Hollywood romanticizes. Truth brutal, utterly unappealing. If caught, no quick death. Tortured, interrogated, till confess, poisoning duke to dog. Imagine history changing, removing tyrant, breaking dynasty, silencing threats someone remembers name. No, your assassin, name not remembered. Best rumor, hooded shadow, cold-eyed foreigner, quiet guy never finishing drink. Centuries legendary. Kills official record mysterious death. Purpose, Klein wanted no deniability. Fewer knowing who, safer they no risk. Hired assassin poisons them. Joe Bend buries name. Even real name. No signing. No boasting. No trophies. Existence only kill moment. If someone learn name, loose thread, short lifespan, honor, forget. No silence, medal. No war stopping, single stabstone monument. Nobles built statues. He got wooden box, nameless grave, or worst gallows head traitor. Name known only, curse mine king. Remember Lord Auric, yes. Doer ghost gone. Your legacy not fame, not fear, absence. No mark. Vanish. Long fame deadly mistake. Medieval heroes remembered. Assassins erased. Suppose survived. Succeeded. Even Pedmiracle. Now hide low. Trust client honors. Keeps identity secret. Right. No. Medieval assassin world rule holier than knocketch. Trust no one. Especially payer tick lion dash noble. Merchant, ambitious, ethics free, bishop hired, not respect. Needed dirty job, you sharp as shadow tool. Job done you, burden. Know too much you wanted who, dead, when, why, pay amount. Makes you dangerous to them too. They erase you. Deny meeting. Or worse send another. Contract ends sharp not ink. Even double Baquan does. Second kills first. No refund. Just reduced risk. Blackmail. Threat. Brave. Last mistake. Medieval. Powerful nor negotiate assassins. Crush dot of client honor. Spec repay let go. But assume distant watch. Someone sharpening knife, memorizing walk. Your secret can't speak. Shadow can't stay. Success, no trust, earn. Once killer, kill again. No one, even hirer, wants next. Somehow beat odds. Survived, kills, lies, poison, betrayal. Kept morals too. Now, retire. Absolutely not. Medieval assassins. No retirement plan. No farewell feast. No seaside cottage. No gold pension calm. No blend peaceful life. Vanish or die often both. Problem simple. Never safe. Quit past clings. Too many secrets. Names. Blood hands. People know want retired. One forgotten usually underground. If no pursuit impossible still paranoid someone comes. New eager assassin, fresh contract old dangerous shadow. Change name again. Remote village, no questions. Limp fake, herb cell. Claim ex-guard. Still no good sleep. Avoid crowds. Door facing sit. Floor hide knife. Beside never touched coin pouch. Smelling that man. Can't trust self. Years silent kills. Quick escapes mess head. Door knock startle. Street stranger recognize. Stop dreaming dangerous. No love. No relax. No loud laugh. Ghosts live. Pretending human. Truth. Medieval assassin no end game. Just slow cold dark fade. Always move, always watch, till one day dark enter unnoticed. Perhaps best hope. Surely understood now. Medieval assassin dark romantic no. Noble no. Profitable barely. Brutal, ungrateful, short profession, blood-soaked rags, wrapped, back crowd wanting you dead. You know last week, maybe day. Wrong ideas start. Think smooth, control, dark whisper. Reality, cold, hungry one, wrong guess from gallows. City, enter cloak. Pulled action, ready just see target change spot. Guards, drunk, trigger happy. Info paid, stable boys, sold you, mug, ale, breadcrumb. Wrong time, freeze. Wrong person, stab. Chapel near servant's sore face. Suddenly no shadow dash problem dot. Run. But medieval roads, no habit. Mud, uneven stones, impossible loose chickens. Slip fall, court guard, Thomas fresh. Love rejected needing. Vent. Suppose escape, then face consequences. No allies, no honor, no future. Just whispers, suspicion, growing realization. Success best, hope old alone, die, fake name, village still believes fairies know, you know last. Truth, try no should. Assassin life, cool no. Brutal machine humans chew, spit nothing but shadows. Give power, no peace, purpose, no place. You know shape history. Erase self, end waiting silence. Silence no one questions, no one remembers, ever were, before. Macedonia's fearsome queen, Olympias' name was Myrtilla, Molossian princess from Epirus's rugged tribal lands. Her people claimed Achilles' descent. True hero, blood or not unknown, one certain this woman bore not stand history's side. Young Myrtle immersed mystery rituals. Upbringing not just politics, prophecy, frenzied religious festivals, ancient gods. Devotion shaped. No tapestry smiling, giggling princess. Attracted snakes, vultures, Dionysuses, mad festivals, women, barefoot moonlit danced transgold. God.God's relationship, no act. Personal, not just worship, embodied divinity. Ancient sources men. Wrote fear, aura equals a bedroom, sacred snakes, kept even slept beside. True or powerful women, slander never know. Stuck, allies divine, enemies dash dangerous. Real power, not battlefield thrones start. Began flickering torchlight priests, whispers coiled snake borders amid. Not just princess, living oracle woman touched. Politics, older steel, colder something. When Macedonia's Philip II, ruthless talented, notoriously lecherous game. Samothrace religious initiation, met not beautiful princess. Met irresistible mystery. Marriage, not just political alliance. Prophecy, power, clash. From start vulture-filled. Some say, wedding night lightning sky. Some Olympias dreamed lightning entering womb. All legend. One certain Olympias Philip union. Not just childbirth. Birth Alexander Great. Destiny shaped first breath. Philip II, Olympias marriage, no fairy tale, queen, empire building hope. From start, prophecy, pride, paranoia, explosive mix. Philip Marcellus, charismatic trophy wife, collector married Olympias, around 357 BC, lightly teen, no fool. Saw ambition, matching. Own, perhaps, divine match, spiritual fate. Macedonia entry, easy no. Iron ambition, land, kings, killed cousins, brothers, overnight rivals. But papyrus priest, Olympia's head, high-entered eyes, already crown. Their marriage was unstable from the start. Despite Philip's political genius, he was not a believer in monogamy. He would marry many more women often for alliances, always for power. But Olympias was not the kind of woman to sit quietly in the shadows. She maintained her own court, built her own alliances, and turned to oracles and rituals to discern the future and, perhaps, Philip's fate. Then came Alexander's birth. That too was shrouded in heavenly drama. Legend says Olympias dreamed of lightning entering her womb and fire dancing around her child without burning him. Philip supposedly dreamed he sealed his wife's womb with the image of a lion. Yes, a literal lion. Believe these dreams, or consider them fabricated. They behaved as if Alexander was born not just to rule a kingdom, but the entire world. Yet amid the child's celebrations, the cracks in the royal marriage deepened. Olympias was furious with Philip's other wives, especially toward the end of his life when he married the Macedonian Cleopatra Eurydice. This wasn't just a domestic issue, it was a threat. Cleopatra was pure Macedonian, and a son from her womb would appear far more legitimate in the eyes of local nobles. A direct danger to Alexander's future. Olympias saw it clearly. The palace was not just a home, it was a battlefield. And she would use every snake, dream, ritual, and whisper to ensure her son was not just remembered, but crowned. She was no longer Myrtle. She was Olympias, and anyone who stood between her son and the throne would face her wrath. When Alexander was a teenager, the palace at Peleia in Macedonia had become a battlefield of veiled insults, political maneuvers, and bitter rivalries. Olympias wasn't just fighting for influence, she was fighting for survival. She knew the palace was full of snakes, but she herself was the master at teaching them to bite. Philip II was pushing her aside, going on more campaigns, drinking more, and worst of all, listening more to Macedonian advisors. The final blow came when he married a young noblewoman. Cleopatra Eurydice, don't confuse her with Egypt's Cleopatra. This Cleopatra was Macedonian born, and her uncle Attalus was one of Philip's top generals. To Olympias, this wasn't just betrayal. It was a declaration of war. Disaster struck at the wedding feast. Drunk, Attalus mocked Olympias and Alexander, questioning Alexander's legitimacy. Was he truly Philip's son, or divine as Olympias claimed? Meant as insult, but Olympias seized the mythic narrative. Let them whisper. Let them believe her son was untouchable, touched by Zeus. Alexander stormed out of the feast. Olympias left Macedonia entirely for Epirus. But her exile was not defeat. It was strategy. In her homeland, she was still royal blood. She could gather support, whisper in ears, and watch Philip's palace begin to rot from within, even physically. Absent, she remained dangerous. Then came the shock. Philip's assassination happened at his daughter's wedding feast, just as he stood on the threshold of invading Persia, dreaming of making himself not just king of Macedonia, but emperor of the known world. In marble corridors, torchlit halls, one question echoed. Who did it? Pausanias, the slighted bodyguard who wielded the knife? Or the fruit of palace conspiracy, Alexander himself? Or whisper it Olympias? No one could prove it, nor dared to try, but many believed it. Because within days, Cleopatra, Eurydice, and her newborn child were dead, murdered. Some say by Olympias' own hand. The snake had returned to the palace, and now nothing stood between her son and the throne. When Philip died and Macedonia sank into grief or confusion, Olympias made her move. While others scrambled to understand the chaos, she acted swiftly, ruthlessly, and decisively. First when Cleopatra, Eurydice, the young Macedonian queen, the rival wife. Horrific accounts say Olympias didn't just kill her. She made the death symbolic, public, humiliating. Some say Cleopatra was forced to watch her infant daughter murdered before hanging herself. Some say the child was thrown into fire. All agree no. Mercy was shown. Olympias understood what many ancient palace mothers refused to accept. In royal courts, mercy is a weakness. A rival child, no matter how young, is a future war, and Olympias was done playing defense. After erasing Cleopatra and her line, she turned to securing Alexander's throne. Her teenage son, bold, brilliant, Aristotle's pupil, was proclaimed king with little serious opposition. But don't be fooled. This didn't happen just from his charisma or his father's legacy. Behind it was Olympias. She knew which general to threaten, which noble to flatter, and which enemy to quietly remove. She didn't just protect her son's she engineered it. Alexander himself wasn't always comfortable with this ferocity. He was reportedly displeased with the violence toward Cleopatra's family, but he didn't stop it, because deep down, he knew what Olympias had always known. Claims to power are written in blood. And in Macedonia, bloodlines were both blessing and curse. After her son became king, Olympias stepped back somewhat from public life. But this wasn't retirement. She merely shifted from open strikes to whispered influence. As Alexander prepared to conquer Persia, she stayed behind not as a passive queen mother, but as the spiritual guardian of his destiny. She sent sacred relics, consulted oracles, performed rituals on his behalf. To her, her son's campaign wasn't just military. It was divine. Alexander wasn't going to war, he was fulfilling prophecy. And as long as she drew breath, no rival Macedonian, Persian, or otherwise would derail that divine plan. She had crowned her son. She had cleared the palace. Now she would guard his empire from behind the curtain, fangs bared as Alexander advanced eastward. Olympias remained in Macedonia, Queen Mother without a throne, but far from powerless. Her formal title was Queen Mother, but make no mistake, she ruled without the name. Formal regency had been given to Antipater, one of Alexander's trusted generals. But Olympias was not content to stand aside. She wrote her son, incessantly advising, warning, sometimes scolding. These weren't sweet, maternal letters. They were political briefings laced with oracles and venom. And Alexander, thousands of miles away, read every word. She reminded him who his real enemies were, questioned his companion's loyalty, criticized his fascination with Persian customs, his choice of wives, his playing at godhood. No one else dared say such things, but Olympias never feared not. As mother, or as priestess of divine will, in Macedonia, Antipater grew increasingly resentful. Olympias undermined him at every turn, using her status, religious authority, and family ties. She stirred opposition against him. In Epirus, Thessaly, among the nobles her influence spread. She could spread rumors like wildfire, and Olympias's whispers could be deadlier than swords. Her letters to Alexander grew more urgent, warning of Antipater's ambitions, painting him as a second Philip poised for betrayal and throne-grabbing. Whether she truly believed it or simply feared losing her own influence, she constantly pressured her son to act. But Alexander hesitated. Waging war in Asia, he needed Antipater to maintain order in Greece. So the rift between mother and genera deepened. Olympias watched. She waited. But beneath religious garb and maternal guise, she grew impatient. Having survived palace wars for decades, she was not content to be ruled by an old soldier. As Alexander's empire stretched from the Aegean to India, Olympias saw cracks. He was taking too much, trusting too many foreign advisors, drifting from his mother and the gods who had made him. His victories came from divine favor and from her she believed. And if he forgot, Olympias knew how to remind kings who they were, even if that king was her own son. In 323 BC, news of Alexander's death in Babylon reached Macedonia, not like thunder, like a knife. To Olympias, it wasn't just losing a son. It was the collapse of a world she had built for decades. Her son, the divine storm she had prophesied, nurtured, unleashed, gone. And without a clear heir, only chaos. The vast empire she had carved was already fracturing. His generals, the so-called successors, circled the corpse like jackals, dividing it. Antipater still held power in Macedonia and Greece, and he had no love for Olympias. Worse, her daughter Cleopatra, Alexander's sister, was receiving marriage proposals from rival generals. Each wanted to use her bloodline to claim the throne. Olympias saw what was coming. Civil war was not a possibility, it was inevitable. And once again, she had to act. But Alexander was gone. In his place was his bloodline, her young grandson, Alexander IV, born to Roxana, the Bactrian princess Alexander had married. Roxana was still in Macedonia, vulnerable. The boy even more so. Olympias understood the child was now the last true piece of her son's legatia target, but also a weapon. She allied with Roxana and the boy, protecting them and using the child's birthright to assert her own claim. But the tide was turning against her. The generals who once bowed before Alexander were no longer willing to kneel to his widow or mother. They now had armies, ambitions, old grudges. Olympias did not back down. She had faced snakes, traitors, kings. A few warlord crowns and stolen spears wouldn't scare her. So she plotted. She waited. She watched Antipater die and his place taken by his son Cassander, ice in his veins. No. Patience for the old queen's games. Clash between these two forces was only a matter of time. Alexander's snake mother and the cold-eyed usurper who wanted to bury her. Alexander was gone, but his shadow still moved, and Olympias coiled within it, ready to strike. In the years after Alexander's death, as his empire shattered in civil war, Olympias made her boldest move. She returned to Macedonia not as a grieving mother, but as a political force of divine wrath. Regency had fragmented. Her old enemy's son Cassander was seizing power, and Roxana and young Alexander IV were nearly prisoners. Olympias read the writing on the wall. Acna or her grandson would vanish like evening shadows. So she allied with the aging general Polyperchon, who still held some legitimate authority. Olympias would not return to beg, she would rule. With Polyperchon's support, she entered Macedonia with an army, and as her foot touched the soil, everything changed. Cities opened their gates, soldiers defected to her side. Even old enemies hesitated. Aged though she was, Olympias's name still shook the ground. Then came her revenge. One by one, she hunted Cassander's loyalists. And when she captured Alexander's mentally disabled half-brother Philip III, Aridius, who had been a puppet king, she ordered his death. Some sources say his wife Eurydice was captured and given the chance to suicide. When she refused, she was strangled. Brutality wrapped in royal proto-land, Olympias, ever dramatic. staged the scene as if a goddess dispensing justice. Her message was clear. Only Alexander's bloodline had the right to rule. All else were pretenders. For one brief, blazing moment, Olympias held the kingdom in an iron grip. She had restored the dynasty, avenged betrayals, reminded Macedonia what royal power looked like in a woman's hands, when she had nothing left to lose. But power in Macedonia was like fire on dry grass. And Cassander was still out there, calculating, waiting. He returned with vengeance. His army larger, resources deeper, cruelty colder. Her allies began to abandon her. Polyperchon's influence waned. The tide turned again. At the fortress of Pydna, alone, Olympias watched the enemy close in. She had set the fire. Macedonia burned. Now the smoke thickened, and the enemy was at the gates. The ancient world's most feared woman, Olympias, was now besieged in Pydna's coastal fortress, isolated, cut off, encircled by Cassander's forces. Cassander had come to finish what his father started, but Olympias did not beg. She did not plead. For nearly a year, she endured the siege like a statue carved from divine fury. Food ran out. Disease crept in. Allies vanished. Yet within the fortress walls, she maintained the same unyielding presence that had once made kings tremble. In the end, she did not present herself as a prisoner, as the mother of a god. Cassander, ever cautious, hesitated. He knew killing Olympias was dangerous. Myth still armored her. She was still the mother of Alexander the Great. Striking her could seem like insulting the gods. So he offered safety. "Surrender," he said, "and your life will be spared." Olympias knew better. She had seen too many royal promises turn to ash, yet hunger and discomfort know death. Her army broke, her followers surrendered, and Olympias, unyielding to the last, was handed over to her enemies. Cassander did not kill her himself. That would have been too easy, too merciful. Instead, he delivered her to the families of those she had killed during her brief return to power. Let them decide. They sentenced her to death. But here's the twist. When the executioners came, no one could land the first blow. Olympia stood. Tall, regal, silent, her eyes on them, like an oracle seen through smoke. These were Macedonians. They had grown up on her rituals, visions, snake stories. They had once cheered her son as a living god. And now she stood a frail old woman, wrapped in legend, and not one could raise a sword. So Cassander sent others, foreigners, outsiders who had no memory of her power, only orders, and thus Olympias finally fell, without ceremony, without dignity, in silence. Her death erased the last mark of Alexander's bloodline's power, and with it, the final ember of an empire built on divine ambition went cold. But even in death, Olympias left a shadow, and history would never forget the Snake Queen. Olympias did not die on a throne on the ground, unarmed, abandoned, executed by men she had once ruled. But history is strange. It doesn't always favor those who die in silk sheets. Sometimes it remembers those who hiss with their last breath. And Olympias was never born for quiet history. In life, she wielded motherhood like a sword, and prophecy like a shield. She was not just the mother of Alexander the Great. She was an architect of his rise. Without her, there is no mythic, divine child. No whispers of lightning and lions. No ruthless erasure of rivals that cleared a teenage king's path to rule. The known world. Olympias didn't just birth an empire, she guarded it with claws. Yet even among the ancient world's cruelest dynasties, Olympias stands apart. She didn't lead armies on battlefields like Cleopatra, or charge into war like Boudica. Her battlefield was subtler, colder. Poisoned cups, political marriages, the world of priestesses and oracles. She understood the power of fear, and even more the power of belief. She convinced people her son was divine, and perhaps believed it herself. Enemies called her murderer. Which, conspiratorned, they weren't wrong. Olympias was all that, and more. She was the product of a brutal world where cunning was honored more than mercy. And she had learned young that mercy is a luxury for queens. In later centuries, she has been vilified, mythologized. Some call her villain, some visionary. But no historian, ancient or modern, can call her irrelevant. She haunts Alexander's legacy like a ghost, always in the background, always behind the curtain. And perhaps that's where she belongs. Not as a tragic mother or footnote in a king's tale, but as a story in her own right. The woman who wrapped herself in prophecy, slept beside snakes, and outlived the gods. Olympias's bones mingled with the earth long ago. But her legend lives on in every tale of a ruthless queen. In whispers of blood-bound destiny, in every empire woven from myth, she is still there. Coiled in the dark, waiting. Just a few miles south of modern Heraklion, on Crete's sun-scorched island, lies a ruin more dream than reality. Stone corridors twist like snakes. Rooms turn, double back. Stairs lead nowhere. Even today, it's easy to lose your bearings. This is Gnosis, the heart of Minoan civilization, and the inspiration for humanity's most enduring myth, the labyrinth of the Minotaur. But before the legend was the palace, a singular palace, built around 1900 BC, expanded over centuries. Gnosis was not just a royal residence, it was an entire city under one roof, spanning nearly 150,000 square feet with over 1,000 rooms, light wells, storerooms, temples, workshops, and what are considered history's first flush toilets, running water, multi-story apartments, sophisticated ventilation. It wasn't an ancient fortress, it was an architectural masterpiece. To modern archaeologists, Gnosis appears organized chaos. To ancient visitors, it may have seemed magic. The man who brought Gnosis to the modern world's British archaeologist Arthur Evans. In the early 20th century, he excavated and immediately became convinced this was the source of the Greek labyrinth myth. The layout disorienting, the architecture deeply symbolic, and everywhere you look, bull imagery painted on walls, carved in stone, or fashioned into tiny gold charms. Bulls were sacred to the Minoans. Evans went so far as to name the civilization after the mythic king Minos. Whether Minos truly existed is unknown, but his legend has become inseparable from the ruins. But here's the twist. No one found a literal labyrinth. No underground maze, no prison cells, no half-man, half-bull monster. What exists is far more mysterious. A city built in loops, wings, layers, deliberately designed to disorient. And the deeper you go, the blurrier the line between history and myth becomes. So the question remains, did the Minotaur spring from these walls, or was the palace itself the monster? Gnosis doesn't surrender, answers easily, but it's masterful at raising the right questions. This legend is as famous as the ruins. a half-man, half-bull monster imprisoned in a maze so complex that anyone who entered could never escape. Only Theseus, Athens' hero, with a ball of thread and Princess Ariadne's cleverness, slew the beast and found his way out. But where did this story come from? And why the labyrinth? The oldest versions speak of Crete's powerful king Minos, who demanded 7 boys and 7 girls from Athens every year as tribute. These unfortunates were fed to the Minotaur born of divine punishment and shame. Imprisoned in an underground maze, the Minotaur symbolized the dark underside of power barbarity, hidden behind grandeur. To ancient Greeks, Crete was wealthy, mysterious, feared. Its seafaring Minoans were refined but foreign. Their rituals involved bull games, their art strange gods, their palaces unlike anything on the mainland. To a Greek visitor around 1000 BC, Knossos might have felt like another planet. Bulls were sacred in Minoan culture. Frescoes show youths, male and female, leaping over charging bulls in religious rites. On roofs, altars, stylized horns of consecration. Mix that with the maze-like palace, and you have the ingredients for legend. But what if the Minotaur wasn't just a monster? What if it was metaphor? Some scholars think the tale remembers Crete's Aegean dominance when Athens truly paid tribute to a powerful, unfamiliar power. The labyrinth may symbolize the political trap of a weaker state, and the Minotaur Minoan rules, raw, terrifying. Strength. Others see it psychologically. The labyrinth, the unconscious mind, the Minotaur hidden desires. Theseus, the hero who descends into darkness, holding only memory's thread. Yet the legend remains tied to Knossos. This palace is the closest. We've come to the real labyrinth. No monster, no Ariadne, but something deeper. Not just legend echoing in history that seemed to wait to become legend. Long before Athens raised marble temples or Sparta sharpened spears, there was Minoan civilization, one of Europe's first advanced societies. They conquered not through war, but trade, art, and near miraculous architectural mastery. At the center of their power was Knossos, not just a palace, a hub of culture, ritual, economy. The Minoans flourished from around 2600 to 1400 BC, centered on Crete. They built vast trade networks, Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Levant, even distant Spain. Their ships cut the Mediterranean like silent arrows carrying pottery, saffron, bronze, luxury goods. They built no vast armies. They built relationships that made them wealthier than weapons. The most striking aspect of Minoan culture is how different it was from later Greek successors. Their art celebrated nature, animals, flowing human movement, not war or divine punishment. Frescoes of dancers, dolphins, bull leapers. Their goddesses, 2 powerful, bare-breasted figures, often holding snake symbols of fertility, transformation. Protection at the center was Knossos, a fertile valley, not a hilltop fortress. No massive defensive walls perhaps, they felt safe on their island, or their influence spread so far walls were unnecessary. Their confidence was in architecture. Multi-story buildings, colonnaded courtyards, advanced drainage. What seems far ahead of its time. Yet despite sophistication, the Minoans left no written records we can read. Their primary script, lineae, remains undeciphered. We don't know what they called themselves, what kings believed, what they prayed, or what truly happened behind Knossos' walls. What remains: ruins, art, influence taken up later by the Mycenaeans and echoed in Greek legend. The Minoans weren't just palace builders. They were architects of mystery. And Knossos wasn't just a building. It was the pulsing heart of a civilization that blazed across the Aegean like sunlight for a moment, then vanished into mist. But some say their echo still wanders the maze, walking. Knossos means walking through time, layer upon layer, disorienting, beautiful time. It's not just the scale that overwhelms, it's the design. Room to room, corridors split and vanish. Light wells slice through the building's heart. Stairs spiral into shadow or suddenly emerge into sun-drenched courtyards. Nothing runs straight. It's not hard to see why ancient visitors were spurred of labyrinths. Knossos wasn't just a palace, it was a living organism, nearly 150,000 square feet with over 1,000 rooms, some tiny, some vast. Not random purposeful workshops, storerooms, temples, apartments, throne rooms all clustered around a grand central courtyard, perhaps for public ceremonies or bull games. The palace was multi-level, up to 4 or 5 stories in places, built on natural slopes and artificial terraces. To navigate without getting lost required memory, instinct, or Theseus's thread. But beneath apparent chaos lies extraordinary intelligence. The Minoans mastered passive ventilation shafts and open stairs keeping rooms cool. They channeled rainwater through clay pipes and had toilets that flushed centuries before Rome. The most famous spot is the sockled throne room alabaster seat bound to the wall. Benches on either side. Walls frescoed with Griffin's mythic guardians. Was this a priest-king's seat? A goddess's chamber? A sacred court? No one knows for sure, and the walls speak in color. Vibrant frescoes of dolphins swimming over bathtubs. Elegant women in flounced skirts, bare-breasted. Youths leaping mid-air over balls. This art wasn't mere decoration, it was identity, flowing, natural, deeply connected to earth and sea. Yet the deeper you go, the more Knossos disorients. Some sections seem deliberately complex, as if built to confuse. Perhaps this is the root of the labyrinth legend. Not a monster's prison, but a palace that felt alive, that inspired awe, ritual, and a touch of fear. No locked doors, no mythic beast. Just a place that forces you to ask, where am I? And what waits around the next corner? Knossos wasn't just an administrative center or royal residence. It was a place of worship, architectural expression of the Minoan soul immersed in ritual, legend, divine mystery. No towering columns for Zeus, like later Greek temples, or marble for Athena. Knossos' spirituality was subtler woven into the building's fabric, shrines tucked in corners, columns rising like sacred sentinels, stylized horns on roofs, altars, bull motifs everywhere, showing deep connection to this sacred animal. The Minoans didn't fear bulls, they celebrated them. Knossos' famous bull-leaping fresco isn't just athletic art, likely religious rite. Youths vaulting, charging bulls, a dance of danger and grace, not sport. Sacred drummer perhaps, offering to a god or symbolic triumph over chaos. Then there's the snake, goddess figurine found in palace storerooms. Bare-breasted, arms raised, snakes coiled in hands or around bodivis. Figure radiates power, not submissive goddess. Guardian of the household, fertility, life. Two Minoan snakes symbolized renewal, rebirth, mystery creatures of both earth and underworld. The rooms where these were found were household, shrines or ritual spaces, quiet sacred corners amid the palace's busy heart, frescoes, horns, altars. Maze-like corridors combine to make the entire complex feel like a ritual machine built, not just for living, but connecting with the divine. Knossos had no central temple because the palace itself was the temple. Its layout, art, design, all part of a spiritual vision where sacred and worldly had no boundary. Here, legend was architecture. Corridors could become divine paths, and stone chambers might once have echoed whispered prayers. Knossos wasn't just shelter for humans, it was for gods too. For centuries, Knossos stood as a beacon of prosperity, innovation, cultural refinement. Then something happened, sudden, unexplained. Around 1400 BC, the palace was abandoned, frescoes faded, and the Minoan civilization that ruled the seas vanished into Aegean mist. What happened? Theories abound. Some say nature. Around 1600 BC, the eruption of Thermodon Santorini, one of humanity's largest explosions. The shock, so powerful, tsunamis slammed Crete's north coast, destroying ports and farmland. Ash clouds blocked the sun, ruining crops, altering climate. Knossos wasn't destroyed instantly, but the aftermath shook economic, political, spiritual foundations. Some say war. Around 1450 BC, mainland Greek Mycenaeans exploited Minoan weakness. Archaeological evidence shows Knossos briefly reoccupied, but culture changed. Art more warlike. Linear A replaced by linear Mycenaean scribes' script. Where once snake goddesses and bull dancers reigned, now a foreign tongue whispered. Some believe Mycenaeans didn't conquer in one invasion, gradual absorption. First trade, then influence, finally rule. Others point to internal collapse, civil war, political instability, elite failure equally to blame. Remarkably little sign of violence in ruins. No burned skeletons, no mass graves. Knossos didn't fall screaming. It whispered. The vast palace system stopped. Rooms fell silent. Rituals ended, and nature slowly reclaimed. When Homer sang of Crete in his epics, Knossos was already ancient. Legend memory wrapped in tales of kings, monsters, mazes. And perhaps that's fitting. What killed Knossos wasn't just volcano or invasion. Time and the way all great things, no matter how beautiful, eventually fade under new empires' weight. But the bones remain. And if you listen, the maze still hums beneath the earth. For thousands of years, Knossos lay buried under Crete's soil. Just another pile of stones lost to time. Its name forgotten, legend distorted, walls swallowed by olive groves and dust, until one man chased the mirth. His name was Sir Arthur Evans. And he didn't just rediscover Knossos, reimagined it. In 1900, Evans, a British archaeologist with a flair for drama and deep love for Homeric legend, bought the land covering ancient ruins. Local farmers kept finding strange seals and artifacts, hints. Something vast lay beneath. Evans began digging. What he uncovered changed Aegean history forever. He revealed a palace so vast, complex, advanced that he became convinced this was the home of mythic King Minos. The frescoes, horns, sites, architectural strangeness all pointed to one thing in his mind: the labyrinth. Evans wasn't just an archaeologist. He was a storyteller, and sometimes controversial. He named the builders Minoan after Minos, interpreted symbols, reconstructed frescoes, and repaired parts of the palace with reinforced concrete, turning both praise and criticism. Some call him visionary, others destructive, because what we see at Knossos today is part ancient ruin, part Edwardian imagination. Yet Evans did what no one else dared. He brought Knossos to life. He showed Europe a Bronze Age world far older than classical Greece, filled with art, mystery, seafaring, elegance. He uncovered still undeciphered linear raising new questions about language, literacy, limits of historical understanding. But Evans didn't just unearth stones. He revived a legend and forced historians to acknowledge that behind the labyrinth myth lay something real. Complex, deeply human palace that felt like a maze, a civilization that faded into shadow, and one man who moved Earth to reveal a story stranger and more beautiful than his imagination. Knossos slept for 3,000 years. Evans rang the bell and woke it. Walking Knossos means walking a language of symbols, frescoes, carvings, patterns everywhere. But the Minoans left us no Rosetta Stone. Their primary script, linear ray, remains undeciphered. So instead of reading, their thoughts were forced to look painted on plaster, carved in walls, hidden in patterns. What exactly were they trying to say? Knossos is art matures nothing else in the ancient world. No obsession with war, no rows of kings or battle-weary heroes. Instead, nature, leaping dolphins, blooming lilies, flying birds, sacred bulls. Humans alive, elegant, often dancing or performing. Rituals, even in scenes of danger, rhythm and beauty. The Minoans did not write histories of conquest. They celebrated life cycles and perhaps cosmic order. The most famous symbol is the double axe or labares, in temples at Knossos, in frescoes, even carved in stone everywhere. It is considered a religious symbol, perhaps linked to female divinity or celestial cycles. Some say the very word labyrinth comes from labyrinth, meaning maze. But House of the Double Axe, a sacred place, a sanctuary, not a trap. Then there are the horns of consecration, stylized bull horns, on roofs, on altars. These perhaps marked the boundary between sacred and earthly. Combined with the frequent depictions of bulls and bull-leaping rituals, it is clear this animal held profound spiritual importance. Nature, fertility, chaos, or divine presence, no one agrees. But the bull is everywhere. Even Knossos' layout may hold symbolic meaning. Some archaeologists believe it was not just functional, a reflection of celestial or seasonal cycles. Its curving corridors and nested rooms could represent journeys of life, death, the underworld, a spiritual labyrinth. Not a physical prison, but without deciphering the script, every theory walks a thin line between guesswork and imagination. The Minoans spoke in symbols, not stories, and we are forced to interpret. What is Knossos saying? We hear rhythm, we see images, but the meaning remains just out of reach, as if unraveling the thread only to dissolve into legend. Knossos is a ruin, yet it does not feel dead. Walk its corridors today and you will feel a hum beneath the surface. Not ghosts, not gods, the echo of legend, of life, of questions that refuses to fade. Thousands of years after its fall, Knossos still holds us in its maze. Tourists wander its halls, archaeologists seek answers, writers weave new tales in its shadow. The Minotaur may be legend, but the feeling of the labyrinth is real. We do not know who ruled Knossos. We do not know the names of kings, queens, or priests. What prayers they whispered, what laws they followed, we do not know. But we know they loved beauty. They worshipped nature. They understood balance between architecture and art, ritual and reality. And we know they were first. Before the Parthenon, before Rome, before Hebrew temples or Persian palaces, there was Knossos, a palace that was a city that was a temple that perhaps was a story. For perhaps the labyrinth is exactly that, not a prison, not a puzzle, a tale carved in stone, a legend taking shape in architecture. The Minotaur legend did not spring from nothing. It came from this place, from the disorientation of its corridors, the reverence of its bull rituals, and the wonder of generations who tried to understand it. The Greeks made it a story. We made it archaeology. But at its core, Knossos was always both. Today we can walk its ruins in daylight, take photos, draw maps, reconstruct frescoes. But the mystery has not vanished. The line between fact and legend still shimmers on the stones like heat. Perhaps this is why Knossos endures, because it does not give all answers. It reminds us that sometimes history is not for solving. It is for feeling, and Knossos, ancient, intricate, half-remembered, is not just a place on a map. It is a question, one that draws us deeper with every step. And like Theseus, we are all still holding the thread. Ancient engineers knew exactly what they were doing. The first rams were handheld. Teams of soldiers simply lifted tree trunks and slammed them into enemy defenses like mad lumberjacks. But over time, the battering ram evolved. Engineers realized that mounting the ram on a wheeled frame, adding a roof to protect the crew from arrows and boiling oil, it transformed from a tool into a weapon of terror. The Assyrians, masters of siege warfare, turned the ram into a psychological weapon. Their siege towers featured rams combined with archer platforms, meaning the city gate was being smashed while defenders faced relentless fire. Relief carvings from Nineveh show Iron Tit, rams advancing on rebellious cities, slow-moving gods of destruction, and not just front doors. Rams were used to breach weak wall sections, topple watchtowers, or collapse entire gatehouses. Their mere presence delivered one message: surrender, or watch your defenses crumble like stale bread. The Greeks refined it, the Romans perfected it. Roman engineers built massive rams called ares in Latin, meaning rams suspended by chains, or ropes under huge canopies. Some were so large, they required dozens of men to operate, and the rhythmic thud of the swinging beams sounded like thunder against stone. Yet, for all its brutal power, the battering ram required teamwork. The crew had to swing it in unison while shielding themselves from flaming projectiles, dropped stones, and whatever filth rained from above. Stop, and the ram died. But when it truly got going, it was unstoppable. Would muscle against human masonry. Ancient physics. Weaponized, and it was only the beginning of how engineers learned to make walls weep. If the battering ram was brute force, the catapult was cunning. Where the ram struck up close, the catapult attacked from afar, not just hurling stones, but psychological dread. These were military history's first true artillery, and they revolutionized siege warfare by making physics feel almost magical to the enemy. The earliest catapults emerged from the Greek world around the 4th century BC, products of brilliant minds seeking to add distance and velocity to war. Dionysius, the elder of Syracuse, a tyrant with a taste for cutting edge. Violence commissioned the first torsion-powered catapults, using tightly twisted bundles of animal sinew or hair as springs. These were no giant slingshots. They were precision. Instruments of siege terror. The magic lay in mechanics. Engineers discovered that twisting rope soften made of animal sinew could store immense potential energy. Released, that energy could hurl stones, spears, or incendiary projectiles. Hundreds of meters to main types quickly evolved. The ballista firing massive bolts like a giant crossbow and the stone-throwing catapult, lobbing boulders over walls or directly at fortifications. Then came the Romans, who never saw a Greek idea they couldn't improve. They built disassemblable catapults, transportable on carts, assembled on site. Portable siege engines for a professional army. Some Roman catapults could hurl 60-pound stones with terrifying velocity, capable of splintering wooden gates, battlements, or unlucky soldiers. Catapults weren't just for destruction. They were for spectacle. Ancient commanders used them to send messages, sometimes literally. Corpses hurled over walls spread disease and fear. Severed heads broke morale. In one horrific instance, plague-infected bodies were launched early, biological warfare. But catapults had weaknesses. Heavy, requiring skilled crews, useless on bad terrain. Yet, when properly positioned, they could force a city to surrender from afar. And for the first time, cities realized their thick stone walls had to withstand not just rams but destruction from the sky. Because now ruin was flying. If the catapult was clever, the trebuchet was majestic. Tall, creaking, terrifying. The undisputed king of medieval siege warfare. Spot one on the battlefield and it wasn't just a weapon. It was a declaration, saying, your walls mean nothing. Unlike tension-powered cousins, the trebuchet relied on gravity. At its core was a simple principle, a long pivoting arm mounted on a sturdy frame, heavy counterweight at one end, sling at the other. Raise the weight, release, and the arm whipped around, flinging the sling and its deadly payload in a high arc over enemy defenses. It was controlled devastation, precise, predictable, devastating. The trebuchet's origins traced to early traction. Models in China as far back as the 4th century BC, where human power replaced the counterweight. But the counterweight trebuchet that changed siege warfare in Europe and the Islamic world appeared in the 12th century, possibly via Byzantine or Muslim mediation. Once Europe got the design, it spread like wildfire through castles and crusades. The power was unbelievable. A well-built trebuchet could hurl 300-pound projectiles over 300 meters. Furniture-sized stones crashed into towers, pulverized walls, or shattered enemy morale. But the real magic was the arc. Unlike catapults, trebuchets could lob with precision high over walls, meaning not just breaching defenses, striking inner courtyards, barracks, supply stores, and not just stones. Trebuchets launched everything diseased. Animals, flaming pitch, lime pots to blind defenders. Even insult-trapped stones. In one legendary siege of Scotland's Stirling Castle, a trebuchet named Warwolf was so massive that the enemy reportedly offered surrender before it fired just to test the machine. The king refused. But for all its destructive glory, the trebuchet was slow. Hours to build, minutes to reload, requiring skilled engineers. Yet no other siege engine blended distance, power, and psychological terror quite so perfectly. It was the Middle Ages slow-motion hammer from the sky, and when the counterweight dropped, cities held their breath, while rams smashed and trebuchets flew. Some of the most devastating siege tactics happened silently underground. Siege tunneling or sapping was the dark art of fortress conquest, defeating a city by taking away the ground it stood on. Literally. Dig beneath the enemy's walls, prop them with timber supports, then set the supports ablaze. When the wood burned, the tunnel collapsed, taking the war's foundation with it. One moment your city stood intact, the next, a massive section of outer wall crumbled like stale bread. This method wasn't glamorous. No massive machines or thunderous launchers, but tunneling. Was siege warfare's slow, invisible killer. The Assyrians used early versions, but the technique reached perfection in Greek, Persian, and later medieval European armies. In the 429 BC siege of Plataea, Spartans tunneled under the walls, but defenders counter-tunneled and met them midway, turning it into a nightmare knife fight underground. This defense became counter-mining, a bizarre element to siege warfare. Imagine soldiers digging in darkness hundreds of feet below, listening for enemy shovels. A tap herd rush to intercept, often clashing with knives and picks in narrow, suffocating tunnels. No glory, just terror, choking dust, earth. But when undermining worked, the result was catastrophic. One infamous example, the 1215 siege of England's Rochester Castle. King John's forces tunneled under the south wall, packed it with pig fat, and set it alight. Supports collapsed, taking the entire tower. Defenders stunned, soon surrendered. By the 13th century, siege engineers became experts at spotting weak foundations, reading soil behavior, and timing collapses perfectly. They were part geologists, part demolisher, and though tunneling required time, labor, and a touch of madness, it proved one truth of siege warfare. If you can't go over the wall or through it, there's always under. Not all siege drama came from attackers. For every ram built or tower advanced, defenders had their own deadly tricks, and sometimes those tricks were hot, starting with the most feared, Greek fire. Invented by the Byzantines in the 7th century, a mysterious, napalm-like substance that clung to ships, walls, or flesh, and burned even on water. Siphoned or hurled in clay pots, it created utter chaos. No one today knows exactly how it was made. The recipe so secret it vanished with the empire, but its impact legendary, entire. Fleets reduced to burning skeletons in minutes. And that was just the start. More common defenses relied on boiling liquids, water, oil, or sand poured through murder holes, those small openings in gatehouses or tower roofs, directly onto attackers below. Oil was especially dreaded. Unlike water, it stuck to skin, seeped through clothing and armor, igniting before burning. Hot sand was less dramatic, but cruel in its own way. It poured into armor gaps, especially neck or wrists, causing 2nd and 3rd degree burns beneath metal. Not spectacular from afar, but it turned brave warriors into screaming wrecks in seconds. Defenders trusted simple physics. Gravity became a weapon. Massive stones, logs, or dead animals dropped from parapets onto siege engines or dense troops. The goal not just killing crippling machines and morale together, then traps, hidden pits, collapsing bridges, spiked barricades, fortresses became mazes of pain designed to slow, confuse, punish, all with one purpose: delay. Every minute the walls held was a minute enemy supplies thinned, disease spread in camp, or relief arrived. Siege warfare was a game of attrition, and while attackers had physics, defenders had ingenuity and plenty of boiling rage. Raw destruction in siege warfare was only half the goal. The other half was psychological dominance, breaking defenders' will before the walls fell. Siege engines weren't just weapons. They were massive, creaking, flaming symbols of inevitable doom. Every groan of a siege tower, every hierarch in stone from a treb, sheep planted a seed in minds behind the walls. You are not safe. Ancient commanders knew this. Assyrians paraded their siege engines openly, dragging them across deserts in grand processions. Romans built siege camps in full view of enemies, letting defenders watch machines assembled, catapults tested. Siege was theater, and fear part of the script. Sometimes the projectiles themselves carried messages. Severed heads of envoys, or generals still, helmeted, hurled over walls. During Constantinople's sieges, defenders endured not just stones, but showers of corpses. Plague infected, bodies launched to spread terror and disease. In the 1346 Mongol siege of Kaffa, plague-ridden corpses catapulted are believed to have helped spark the Black Death in Europe. Trebuchets weren't just weapons, they were announcements. When one of these monsters rolled into place, everyone inside heard it before seeing. The creak of winches, ropes strain, heavy thud of counterweight, like the heartbeat of an approaching storm. But the most dangerous was the unknown. You never knew what was coming. Stone, barrel of fire, rain of arrows, or silence. Terrifying, heavy silence while engineers took aim. Even the sounds became psychological weapons. The rhythmic thud of battering rams, or sudden quiet before launch drove defenders mad with waiting. Commanders aimed to create despair, convincing the enemy resistance was futile. Their gods had abandoned them, walls merely temporary obstacles to fate. And when that mental dam broke, gates often opened without further fight. Because in siege warfare, sometimes the mind fell before the masonry, as gunpowder arrived like thunder on late medieval battlefields. The era of traditional siege engines slowly shattered and ended, but their legacy did not vanish. It evolved. The invention of cannon changed everything. One accurate shot could do in seconds what took trebuchets hours. Stone walls once seemingly impregnable became vulnerabilities. By the 15th century, Europe's great fortresses were crumbling not from undermining or fire, but iron balls piercing parapets. Siege warfare entered its next phase, explosive, brutal, deafening. Yet the principles laid down by ancient siege engineers never disappeared. Modern artillery still owes a debt to catapults and trebuchets. Every ballistic missile, every long-range howitzer, is a high-tech descendant of the same question: how to break the unbreakable from afar. Physics, trajectory, tension, energy, all discovered, tested, perfected centuries before gunpowder's story began. Even today's military psychologists shock and awe. Overwhelming firepower, visible dominance roots in ancient siege tactics. Those towering siege engines advancing with flapping banners, that was the original shock and awe. They weren't just for breaching walls, they were for breaking a city's soul. Their legacy is carved in ancient city ruins. At Masada, a Roman siege ramp still scars the desert. At Constantinople, where layered walls withstood every engine for 1,000 years, until cannon fire finally broke them. Across Europe in castles where rounded towers and angled bastions tell stories of constantly reinventing themselves to survive the next siege. And today, in a world of drones and satellite-guided missile, siege warfare has not vanished. It has gone digital. Cities are still encircled. Defenders still isolated. Walls now firewalls, blockades, or media blackouts. But the soul of siege remains the same. Someone wants in. Someone wants to keep them out. And both sides are ready to wait, build, break to win. The battering rams are gone, the trebuchets, museum pieces, but the spirit of siege warfare is as alive and destructive as ever.